Okay, so we're live. We're live here on Facebook. We're live here on YouTube. And if you're not in the Facebook group, if you're watching this on YouTube, please join the Facebook group. You can find them. Check this out and you'll see it. But we're going to talk about something pretty cool that I found that I'm really happy about here. And that's that we can take, when we're exporting stems, and of course, if you've seen the previous one, you know that not only can we get mono files out, which is important for voiceover, but sometimes we want to combine and also send them a context version, which also has music or sound effects or something else like that. And so a lot of people will do this. They will go ahead and export stems, and then they'll export a mixdown, because a mixdown is what we traditionally think of as the thing we will send to our clients. Well, here's a way to do it all at once, where you can get the mono voiceover track and you can get a stereo mixdown track, which combines all unmuted tracks, and get the naming right. And I think you're going to find this fun. This is pretty cool the way this works. So throw a comment in there. Oh, comment over. Yeah, Charles, thanks for helping. Deborah, yay, thank you very much. And if you get a chance, throw a little comment over there on YouTube too. That is super helpful. I think it's working fine. I can never tell during the live stream. 100% says I have an excellent connection over there. Always helpful. So here's what's going to happen. When you're exporting, we all do this all the time, where we're going to take this voiceover track. This is my active track. It's about a minute long. And we're going to export, and we're going to have a stem there that goes out. And I'll just go ahead and say voice track here. And when I export that, what you're going to see is it's going to take the name prefix here, and it's going to add it together with the whatever track it is. The reason it does that is if I chose, I could export the voice track and the music track as their own individual file, one mono, one stereo in this case, because that's what those tracks are, or multiple mono files. I could have a music file and a voice track, and mix it, and each one will come out individually. The interesting thing is sometimes we also want to export a stereo mix at the same time, and we discussed that in the previous live session that we did. So if you haven't seen that, go check that out. And that would be by checking this box. I'm going to get now two things: the voice track all by itself, and then a stereo mix down that comes out of main, and I'll get them both at once. And of course, just a reminder, the stereo mix down is a combination of all tracks which are unmuted. So in this case, for example, if I play this audio in the background, let me first cancel this. We'll go ahead and play this. Make sure you can hear this.
Ultimate boxing event that will leave you breathless. Fight.
So you should have heard all sorts of music and a voiceover music track. There's a track of people cheering is in there. There's an explosion. Just all these tracks that are unmuted. Of course, you can click and drag and mute a set of tracks at once, click and drag and unmute a set of tracks. So that's fine. Now note, if I want to send the client just the raw voice track and a mix of all the tracks, all the unmuted tracks at once, I'm going to select, make sure this track is active, whatever is active, that's going to set the length of the whole thing. And now what it's going to do is export that voice track as a track and main as a mix of everything that we have, what we just heard right there. All right, so check this out. So watch this. We go ahead and in one, there we go. And now when we look at it, you're going to see, let me delete all these because I've done this before. I'm going to delete them just so you can see this. We'll do this. And let me do that one more time. And then that way it won't be cluttered by the other stuff there. So now we're getting two tracks. And one of them is going to be our stereo track. That's main. You can see that. And the other one is our voice track. And that's voice. And you can see what it did was it combined the name of the file with what track it is or what output it was. And so I don't usually want that. What I'd rather have is something like this. Here's a little trick. So of course, most of you know this already. You can go ahead and take any of these tracks, and because I color code all my tracks, I can blank this out, and then now if that is blank on the track, when I go ahead and export stems, then what happens is that one, the yellow track, has nothing, and it's going to now give me a file right here that says boxing. I'll just do it. And you're going to see it comes up, and you see it will come up right now. There it is. And let me sort them by date. So there it is. That one came out as the track, whatever the name was of the file, that's what came out. And then it also added a main. And since I already had one of those, it did it a second time. But I don't want it to be called main. Sometimes so of course we can go into the file manager or the, what are we calling it on the other thing? The Finder, duh. Okay, my Finder. I only have 2 Macs sitting next to me, so I should know that stuff. So the Finder, I could go in the Finder and change it. I could go into it, but I don't like to. So I'm going to do this instead. Watch this. What I can do is I can do it the other way around, where when you export stems, it is going to take whatever we put right here, which is defaults to the name of the file, but I could put my amazing project or your amazing project right there, and then it is going to add, well, nothing in this case, and now it'll be my amazing project main and my amazing project nothing, and you'll see that come up here. It will come up real quick, and I'll do it by date modified, and there it is, my amazing project main and my amazing project wave. And just so you can see visually that one is going, oh, that one I double clicked on it, sorry, that came into RX. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of RX there. I'm going to just drag her directly here. There's my amazing project. That was the original wave file right there. And then main is going to come out, and main is going to be everything. Now, if I mute everything there except for this final one,
Night champion
that's a complete mix down right here. That's this one.
is back on October 28th.
Of all those tracks that were unmuted. That's what we expected. And then, of course, this one here, if I play it by itself,
At the shed.
that is just the mono track, which is right here with whatever effects that it has there. And it came out, and it's just called My Amazing Project because that's what I did. You could do it the other way around. If I wanted to have a special name here, special name on this track, because this is what the client specified, now I can do the whole thing again, and I can blank out this. And now what's going to happen is, oh, I muted them. Sorry, let me unmute those. But it's going to come out special name. Let me cancel that. Unmute the one that I want. Let me unmute the so that we get, let me do this. We'll do this. Okay. Now we're going to get the exact same thing we had before, but we're going to export all these again. Let me go through, and I'm going to clean this up for this demo. Get rid of those. Oh, try again. I can't because it's open in Studio One. I dragged those back in. I'll skip those. I'll skip the other one there. All right. So now it's being nice to me and saying, hey, Bozo, you just opened those files in Studio One, and therefore I cannot clear them off the drive. It's doing a good thing there. All right, now I can do that. All right, so now I just got rid of those 2 files for us. And now what you'll see is when I go through, I can blank this out. Now it's going to take whatever I choose over here, special name. I just export the music track, and I can export these. I'll get 3 files in this case. Now I have 3 files, and now you can see that. Look at that. It's just the name that comes from over here, okay? So that's pretty cool because the way I had that set up, since I didn't have anything, now it just said, well, this is main output, this is whatever, and this is whatever the track name is. Now, what if I don't want it called main? All right, that was the one. I can get these 2, special name, whatever I put in there, and that works great. But what if I want to get my total mixdown file with the name for the client that tells them what that is? Watch this. This one took me a bit to figure out. If you open up the mix console, so we go down here to mix, and I have all this stuff, a lot of clutter. If somebody hasn't seen all this, yeah, this file has a lot more stuff than most people's. I could go ahead and hide a bunch of things. But here's the thing. If we go all the way over here to main and we go down to the bottom and we double click on this, I'm going to call this is super version with effects and music. Okay, so or with music and effects, but whatever. I'm going to just name that. I named the main by clicking here and have that named, and watch this. I'm going to do the same thing again. Mark plus export. We look at this right here. It's changed that right there. And then I'm just going to take and get the what is that? The voice track, which we'll call special name. And I'm just going to blank this out here. And now I'm going to get the track names. Remember, I could have blanked out the track names and it would have used my prefix name. So you can do either. You can combine them. It just depends on what you're doing, but watch this. Now we're going to get this. And if I had been smart, look at that. Look at that. Let me blank it all out. It just makes it, you can see it, it's right there, but I'm going to blank it all out. I want to make sure you can see it clearly. That's a whole lot better. Boom, boom, boom. And now I didn't have anything in that folder, and I bring this up and check this out. This is pretty cool. I have my 2 files here, and because I didn't blank out boxing spot, I have the name of the track combined with the name, the prefix. That's what happened in this one. If I do the same thing, but I blank out this, then all I get, it'll just give me the names that I've used on the tracks. So I do that, and I'm going to get 2 more files here, and there it is with just the tracks and just what I have named for main. So you can name the tracks. You have a lot of flexibility with that. If you don't do anything, it's going to combine track name with the name that you have. But if you want, you can go ahead and edit main, and then, because very often, now why would you do this? You can do this after the fact. You can just name them all here after you're done. But very often, sometimes there will be future versions that come up like they ask for a revision. Well, if I have the name already set up in advance, it makes it easier for the revisions. Sometimes I output something, then I check it and go, cripe. I did something that I didn't like. I did something wrong. I had one thing too loud, too quiet. There's a lot of times where I'm exporting it more than once. So I'll get the naming right very often. And then that way I don't have to think about it in the future. And if you do that, so you remember, by default, it's going to combine the file name and the track name into one. So if you want, you can either remove this, and because I do color code things, I don't need to have a name right here to know that this is my deliverable track after RX. I can take this raw track here, and I can take this out of here and have nothing. Remember that you can double click on any of these labels to edit them. And if I unmute this track, I don't need it. I don't need it armed in order to export it. Armed has nothing to do with listening to it. And we just go ahead and we export that guy. Now I could do the raw track, and it's going to go ahead and just take what it is. And if I have multiple tracks that have nothing in them, it'll sequence them. It does the right thing. It's pretty cool. So experiment with it, and you'll find that you have a lot more flexibility than you thought you had for doing that. And my big tip for today that I'm really proud of is realizing that I can change the name of main for each project if I choose to. And then if I'm combining and giving a mono track and a context version, which combines voice and music and sometimes sound effects like I did here in this one, then fine. Whatever it is, as I export it, I don't have to rewrite that name every time. I write it once, and then I get to use it over and over again. And it does come out very often that I have to do this more than once because I make boo-boos. I listen to it afterward. Client requests a revision. So that makes the revisions happen easier. I have people that go, I don't ever want to go back to Studio One after I do some RXing. It's like, I always drag it back. It takes 2 seconds to drag it back, and then everything related from my deliverable to the raw file, they're all sitting in one. And that's a huge advantage as revisions come in, because I can compare and contrast, and sometimes I will have multiple deliverables to the client, and I can put all the variations. Everything's in one. When they come back with a revision, I'm in one spot. You can be in one spot. It makes your life easier. All right, I'm going to look for questions and see if anybody has some questions or comments over there. Charles, thank you. Yeah, I really like it. And it is helpful to understand about what happens if you blank these out. Or if you blank out, remember, you have multiple places to do this. You can blank this guy out. You can blank these out, depending on what you want. Experiment with that. Try it a few times. You'll go, that's really easy. You can change the name of main, and then it'll come out using that. And once you set it up one time, you can use it over and over and over and over again. So let me check for any questions or comments there. One thing that's really super helpful, go over and check out that on YouTube as well. If you're on Facebook, it really helps me if you go over there and you like the video. Plus, it gives you a chance later to come back and bookmark it. And searching through YouTube is much easier. So I'm building a playlist. There's a Studio One playlist there that if you haven't checked it out. Now I'll go back and put better thumbnails in there and better names just to make it easier for you on YouTube. That I haven't gone back and done yet. That will happen over the next couple of weeks, where you'll see all new thumbnails, all new covers, all new naming, just to make sure that it's easy. But there is a playlist there for Studio One. And if you have things that you want to see, get a hold of me. I have some other tips and tricks I'll be doing over the next few days. I think you'll be pretty excited about it. And I'll talk to you. See you on the wires. Let me check. When would you use Mixdown? Well, so Charles asked, when would you use Mixdown? First off, it depends on what you're doing. A lot of times I don't, to be honest with you, because I can get everything I need by exporting the stems. I get the stereo mix down there. I'll do a mix down if I want variations on them, but I usually don't. 90% of my exports are either the single track if I'm doing voiceover. If I'm doing an audio book, it's a single track mono. So therefore, I don't need that. But what I do very often is have a context version for clients where they hired us to do a voiceover. We give them the voiceover if they're a new client. I don't send, because we charge them for this in the future projects, but I love sending them what they ordered, and then we'll also send them a context version because many people, so I did it, let's say I was doing a spa spot, and it's very gentle and loving, and I'm outdoors in the woods. Well, if I give them a track that has very gentle acoustic guitar along with a gentle voicing, or the opposite, I have something that it's going to be Sunday, Sunday, Sunday. It's a announcery and it's big and massive. And then I have screaming guitar that's playing in the background that fits with that type of thing. A lot of times when they hear the voice, they just say, oh, Don sounds mechanical. If you give them a context track, then that's where I'm going to export the additional one. And I'm lazy, or I'm a minimalist. I'm the hardest working lazy guy you're going to meet, but I'm willing to do things to set things up so that I can do it faster in the future. And I'll drag in, I have all my music tracks, I'll drag something in, and then I give them both, and then I don't need to do a mix down. Mix downs are for more complicated ones, and mix downs would be the time that I do a mix down is when I need to have multiples at once. Most people don't realize that not only can I export a WAV file, but in this scenario, I can export a WAV file and an MP3 file, even to different formats, even to different sample rates, depending on what I need to send somebody. So I may have my WAV file set to one, and I have my MP3 file set to another. I can have them match, I can have them different, but I can get both of those at once. So there are cases where I do want to go ahead and export from here, but now the only name that's going to come out is going to be one right here. It's also not going to give me, if I do this, the mono file all by itself. So I'm going to get a stereo file, or I could get a mono file depending on what I'm doing, all right? So I can get a mono file from here, but it's always combining all the unmuted tracks and gives it to me in multiple formats. So there is a case for doing a mix down, but a lot of times I'm doing something and I want the mono file and I want a mix down file that includes everything that I'm able to listen to when I'm just listening back to it. That would be all the unmuted. So that's an excellent question there, Charles. Thank you for asking that. There is a case for mixdown, but that's usually multiple file formats at the same time. And I am working on getting them to put in the same exact box over here in the stems. That's what I really want them to do. And that's something I'm working on. You'll see it at some point. I promise you on that one. Okay, so let me check for any other questions. Yeah, efficient, not lazy. It's really funny. People go, well, why do you do all this extra thing? You drag a file back, and it's like, yeah, I'm going to have revisions, and you are going to have revisions. And if I had exported, say, this file from RX and then sent that to the client, and then they asked for a revision, that file might be slightly different than the one that I did on my original raw one, and I want to know about it, and I'm going to come in and just do a tiny little fragment, a 10-second update for that, for a phrase, to fix a phrase, add a phrase. And if you, at the time you're doing it and the time you're producing it, you drag it back, it's a piece of cake. If you don't do that and they ask for a revision, you need to go find it in both places. Where did you export it out of RX? Where did you export it out of Studio One? You need to bring them together, and then there's just extra work. Over time, I found that it's just easier when you're in process to drag that file back. I highly recommend it, but you do not have to. Okay, I have a lot of people that succeed and don't do that, but they just spend more time doing some of the things, and over the years, I've timed it both ways. So sometimes it doesn't make any difference. A lot of times that extra little drag back and throw it into Studio One before I save it is a time saver over doing, lots and lots and lots and lots of projects. Okay, all right. Thanks for asking that, Charles. It's a really good question. And be sure to go over to the go over to YouTube there. Check that out there. Very helpful, very helpful. And you guys have a fantastic day. Send me questions, comments in the Facebook group or directly, or comment. It's also super helpful if you comment on the YouTube video. That helps. It's amazing how much that helps push the content out to other people. So always appreciate it when you make comments. I'll talk to y'all later. Have a great day. Bye.